Today in the shop we're going to be doing a little, well, it may take a couple days, I don't know because I haven't looked at the part yet. Going to be making a special part for an old Corvette. I'm not sure what year. It's for a friend of John Pothier's, and they're both highly involved with the Corvette restoration projects. And one of the things he wanted me to do is, I better save the box here, he wanted me to laminate some carbon fiber on this part that he sent. So, pretty well packaged part. I may never have to buy bubble wrap again. So anyway, I want to look at this part and see if I can come up with, this is the shape of the part that he wants to make. Let's save the bubble wrap. Christmas is coming. Anyway, this now, to laminate this with a couple layers of carbon fiber, I think, but I'm not sure because I'm not a Corvette guy, that they want this to go up under the dashboard somehow. So it's going to go over the next couple of days, but I'm going to try to make this little video to share how you would do a similar part. So anytime you're going to laminate anything, to be honest, or paint anything, step one is, and we're only using this aluminum as a pattern, so is to get all the corners and edges radius. That's step one. And anywhere the carbon is going to touch, in this case we're going to cover the whole part, anywhere the carbon is going to touch, of course, one of the things we want to have is an etched surface. Now we could etch it a lot of different ways. What I've done already is use some simple green just to see if there was any wax. It looked like the part was pretty clean. Any fingerprints, anything like that, and we'll prep saw it up when we're done, of course. But the first thing is, any way we can, etch it, scratch it. We could actually take it over to the wire wheel, but this is such a delicate part, I don't want to take a chance. I'd rather just do it by hand and not risk the fact that it'll go flying off the wheel. It's very thin aluminum. But once we have the carbon on this, the carbon itself will make it, I'm sure, a lot stronger. So once this is all sanded and etched, I'll clean it with prep saw, and we'll be ready to put on the first layer of carbon. Now, I have to look through my supply of carbon and see what would be appropriate here. I have a couple of ideas, because I want to use multiple layers, of course. And I have West Systems resin. In fact, the last motorcycle restoration I did, the Kawasaki Ninja, I used the clear West resin, which really makes for a nice part. Even though this is not going to be visible, it's always nice if you can make it just a little bit nicer. So once that's sanded, we'll clean that with prep wool and get to the next step. This is a roll of carbon fiber that I have left over from the model airplane days, and it's actually like a Chinese necklace. And I was thinking maybe there's one chance in 1,000 I could get it to go. Oh, it's absolutely perfect. Oh, Butch, you're the luckiest guy on the planet. You can't make this up. Wow, that's going to go over fine. So what I need to do, and this is very, very high quality stuff. It's not reject, it's aircraft quality. So now if I'm real careful about this, actually I think what I'm going to do is try to get one layer of this on today, because once it's on and it's glued, see, this will go right around the edge. This will really be nice if I can make this work. And then I can put some of the other material on top. Oh boy, is this going to be slick. So before I even do this, I'm going to go mix up some resin, because I need to have resin on this before I do it. But it apparently looks like this is going to work, and that would certainly make for a very sophisticated job. I think to make this as efficient as I can, I should just really radius, because we're going to be drawing this material onto the corners. Get the corners radius just a little bit. I'm sure that's not going to affect how this works. And now the nice thing is, Butch, and I hope you're watching this, you'll be able to grind away on this any way you want. When it's done, it'll be just like it's one piece of molten carbon fiber. But in the meantime, to draw this material up onto this, and it's a miracle that that's exactly, it's almost like I ordered that. And that stuff is just absolutely going to work. I think it's going to work perfect. But this is going to be step one. This video is going to go over probably 2 or 3 days. I don't know. But for right now, I know that'll help. Now, I do have to mix up the resin next. That's the next part of this. Now, this is a very easy resin to use, and this is the key to the whole thing. This is the special clear hardener, so you actually get to see the carbon fiber without that brownish, looks like a coffee stain on everything. And this is when you're doing really high-end carbon work. This is a great choice for anything that's not going to get, like an exhaust pipe, get over about 160 degrees. This is the material that and this, by the way, makes a great it's a laminating resin. It's great for doing a myriad of things, and this bracket happens to be one of them. So it's a 3-to-1 mix. You can do it by weight or by volume. I always use a glass container, and then I know I'm not contaminating it. I don't want to use a wax container or anything that, and if you make a big amount, it's going to get very hot and melt the cup. Now, when a resin is a 3-to-1 mix, weight or volume, it's generally not ultra critical. If it was 3.1, really nothing bad would happen. But unlike when you're using an Epon or the worst, the Huntsman, the high temperature resins, they better be with a gram scale. Well, this resin is not. So the reason I'm saying that is when you're doing a home project, or like we're doing something that really, like the parts we did for the Kawasaki that we restored this winter, we made some parts from scratch, we laminated some parts. Well, the whole thing with that is, and here's the whole thing in a nutshell, I got to get a pair of pliers. These things tend to get really sticky, so I need to get the big heavy pliers to open that up. By the way, anybody that deals with resin all the time knows about the big pliers. That's perfectly normal, no reason to get upset about that. Now, the objective of all of these things is not to mix any more resin than you need, because the resin heats up the bigger amount you make, and always put newspaper down. It's always going to be prone to dripping. No matter how careful you are, working with resin is just a messy job. Always wear gloves. It's a good idea if you're not shooting video to wear a mask too. Even though now with COVID virus, I guess we're all wearing a mask, so what can I say? All right, now another trick, and I'm trying to pass on information, or maybe even Butch would be interested in this kind of information. These are just basic 101s. I take a piece of blue tape up here, because the little flux brushes are razor blades, and they cut through your gloves, and all of a sudden you've got a mess you can't believe on your hands. So right now, and I'll do this off camera, you stir this 2 minutes. And when you think it's stirred, it's never going to hurt to stir it a little bit longer. The only issue you can have with any of these type of resins is if they're not stirred enough, you can get it that it either looks, you compromise the appearance of the final part, or it'll have some other deficiency of, they call it the properties, but it's just the way it's going to come out. When we want to have this, we're going to try to make this as nice as we can, of course. So I don't want the camera to run, but I will stir this for 2 minutes. So now with this part all prep-walled, sanded down, the most obvious thing is we're going to want to coat the resin. I want to get some resin on this, and I want to try to pull that sleeve over as conveniently as I can without destroying it, or putting as many rips as I would like to have none. But you know, when you're trying to pitch a no-hitter, sometimes somebody bunts in a single. So anyway, these type of parts in the stuff that I do with the motorcycle restorations and with the model airplanes, we basically have a lot of years of working with carbon fiber and various things. This material is originally made to make 2-cycle tuned exhaust pipes for model airplane engines. That's the original intent of this material. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to really get this on as easily as I think I am. It's just a miracle. Butch, if you only knew. I had thought about this the other night. I said, because if I have to cut the material, there'll be no material on the side. And it won't really matter. It'll be a compromise. But this is just going to make the part just a little bit nicer. This is unbelievable that's going this good. I'm sure John Pothier will leave him, and he's a hard guy to impress. He will be impressed. John, if you only knew. Looks like we're going to be able to stretch this out. Wow. We always say in the shop here, and it's from my machine shop days when I used to do stuff like this, say, it's your lucky day. Well, it looks like today's our lucky day. I don't know how else to phrase it. Now, with that piece on, what I want to do now is get out the big roll of the heavy duty carbon. This piece that's on here is actually just going to be a lamination part. But it laminates around the edge, so we've built strength here. Where unless Butch grinds on this edge, this carbon is acting like the primer does on painted parts. And what it's going to hopefully do, it's going to make it that it's impossible to pull this carbon off the part. And that, of course, is our ultimate goal. So, without further ado, because this is going to get a little sloppy here in about 2 minutes, and we're used to dealing with it, we have plenty of gloves. The part is I'm going to have to get out. Actually, if I really was honest about it, I should have cut some extra parts. I didn't know if I was going to be able to use this. I should have cut some extra carbon fiber off of this, but the way it's going to work out, I'm making sure that goes right through. We'll trowel it on at the very end, and this will be just fine. Sometimes you make yourself crazy, but there is a giant advantage of having that carbon wrap around the edge from a strength point. If we were making an aircraft part, that would be the right way to do it. Okay, we got that on. Now, the next step of this is to cut some of the material that I'm going to be cutting is called twill. And the twill, we can cut strips of it. I'll show how I do that. The first thing we'll do is clean up the work area here and then get out the roll of twill. Several good ways to cut this, and let's try to maximize the use of the material if we can. Let's see, we should actually do it down here, and I would be able to then use that piece in total. There's a Kevlar string along the edge of this, so it gets to be difficult to cut with regular scissors. And this again is 6-ounce twill. The name of this material is twill. So the thing is, and since we're not looking to make a cosmetic part, the thing is when you're making a cosmetic part, you want the twill to be a certain angle, a certain, well, the appearance is ultra critical. We're not concerned with the appearance of it. This is going to be laminated in with, I think, Marine Tex. Now I can make a pattern here. Once I get this done, how big does that part have to be? Plus a little bit. It's a little bit longer than that. The tape just keeps it from unraveling, and so this Kevlar string is always a little bit snippy. The pieces that we have left over, we'll just make it extra strong, and we'll add those in too. But right now, we're just going to cut. We're just using raw material, and we're going to make this piece as efficiently as we can. That's one, that's two. We're going to get one out of this, and I'll get one out of that. So we'll have, when we're done, this will be probably 5 or 6 layers. That's going to be a layer of carbon, and it'll really be that'll be plenty strong. I don't know how strong this has to be, but this will be plenty strong. Okay, so we got all our material cut now. All the material is cut. And all I have to do is laminate. I got to go get fresh gloves on, lay this out, and laminate this in. So this part should be relatively straightforward now. I will take this, put on and we'll get the trowel out very soon. So what's good about this material is this is a 6-ounce material. If I put 6 layers, it's going to be the equivalent of 36-ounce carbon. That's pretty strong stuff, I would think. So while we're here, now right now we don't need this piece of tape. It's actually, I could cut it off, in fact. I don't even need that piece. So, and at the end of it, of course, you have the fun of cleaning the scissors. We'll get rid of that, we'll get rid of that. Get this piece to bond up here. Oh, that's going to be nice. Now what I'm going to do is put all the bonding on the back side, because that's going to allow me at the end of it to trim right up to here with my Dremel tool without cutting through that laminating piece. And I think that's going to be the strongest possible way to make this. Now, again, here we are, and all we need to do now is get plenty of resin in between this. We have about an hour, usually 45 minutes, but it's hot in the shop right now. It's probably over 70 degrees. So I'm trying to expedite this, and of course shoot a little video for Butch and for anybody else that's making this kind. This could actually be a motorcycle part, or those heel guards that are on the Kawasaki's, some of the parts that are on the other bikes. Now, this piece, let's see, what can I use? See, I'm always looking for something. I need another piece. Let's see if this piece is going to work. And if we need to trim that tape off, we'll trim the tape. Don't need to trim the tape on that one. That'll be fine. And you can pretty much get the idea of what we're doing, but with 6 layers, this may be really bulletproof. Now, if it's not, once I trim it all down, I can just add as many layers as I want. And I don't know what the strength requirement here is, if this is supposed to hold. I think it goes under the dashboard, but again, maybe I have no real way of telling. So I'm just going to make it overkill. Overkill is not going to hurt anything. And when this hardens up tomorrow, we'll take a look at it, trim it all down, sand it, prep it up so that Butch can just laminate it right in position. And again, this is just, I'm going to just keep doing this until I use up all the carbon. So maybe I shouldn't even let the camera run here. You're going to be bored. You're probably bored already, but we will get 6 layers on there eventually. So, and that should be really good. Now, what happens is the resin heats up in a jar a lot. It'll cure a lot faster in that jar than it will as I stretch it out here. The thinner I make it, the longer of a work time I have. So obviously in my position, what I want to do is I want to get that resin out into where it's doing its job. And it's that resin in the jar is already getting hot. So that's why I don't mix any more than I really need. Okay, so we've got this piece. Now I don't think this is going to be wide enough. Nope, not really wide enough. Let's see if we could use this piece up here. I don't think we can use that. So what I'm going to do here is trim this off and just use this one basically as a filler piece. And I don't want the tape in the middle of my filler piece. So the idea of the tape is to minimize that and minimize that. Even though if that gets into a cosmetic piece, it's a problem. But on a piece like this, not a problem. On a structural piece, and that's the thing with carbon, it's either structural or cosmetic, and you can deal with it either way. So once I have all of this on here, then of course it's got to sit overnight and dry. I actually could put it outside and dry because it's about 90 degrees outside right now. Yeah, rather than letting a camera run here, I'm starting to get bored. I'll get the rest of them trimmed on here, and we will be good to go. But see, the problem is if I was to put half on each side, what's going to happen is I can't see then how to trim this. It's going to be a problem. So right now, it's not a problem. So that's given me, it's adding a day to the project, but I don't think that's going to in any way be a negative thing. We just want to get all the loose hairs out. And the next thing will be to get the squeegee out and squeegee some of that resin out. So basically from this point on, we'll be using a squeegee just to get this, squeeze out some of the resin. Now if we were making an aircraft part, we'd be fanatical about squeezing out every drop of resin. On a car or motorcycle part, a little bit less fanatical. And it's just a little time consuming because if you press down too hard, what happens, all the stuff moves. And as I already feel this part getting hot, And that part is starting to get, that part is already getting hot. I can feel the heat up here. So I would like to just add a little more resin to this and to our port. Now, when John and Butch first proposed this port to me, I started thinking about how to make it. And I saw little drawings of it, but I didn't know if this material here was going to work. But what's going to happen, now this will really be slick. It'll really be something that I'm proud of if this works out. If it doesn't, we'll make this video a private video. No, we're not going to do that. We don't edit things. Anybody that looked at my 2,000 videos knows I don't edit things. And sometimes the stuff gets boring to watch, but there's always good information that if you seriously want to do this stuff, if you're doing it because you're bored at work and you're watching windy videos, well, that's one thing. But, and that there's nothing wrong with that, that's for sure. But if you really want to learn how to do stuff, and a thing that separates real competitive people, they really want to know how to do stuff. They really want to know. When I was modeling, I wanted to know everything there was to know about every phase of it, how to build motors, how to make tanks. I made a lot of carbon fiber fuel tanks, and any of my modeling friends will remember those. We used to sell those. We made the carbon fiber exhaust pipes. Oh my God, I can't even remember how many we made, but a lot anyway. And Dave Midgley, I want to thank Dave Midgley and Dick Hewitt for supplying the material to this job. And they supplied it to my restoration job, and this actually is the overage of that project. So this, I think this is going to be one heck of a part. So that resin has just started to harden and get firm. It's going to sit overnight, of course. In the meantime, I'm going to use acetone, clean up all the tools, all the squeegees and everything. And we're going to see how that part dries up tomorrow. I'll come back to the shop and see if we want more lamination. I'll trim it, get that step done. And I think for the first day that we worked on this, and we could leave that up there. The first day, I think that's looking pretty good. And I've got it just sitting up on that jar, and it's probably going to glue itself to the jar, but we can, since we're going to sand it all down anyway, it doesn't even matter. So day one ends, and we'll come back to this tomorrow. Okay, 24 hours have gone by. We'll take a look at how this dried up. I put this to bed last night. Solid as a rock. I just have to break the jar away, of course. Trim everything off. Yeah, that dried up beautifully. So the next step on this is I have to, and this is why I did this in 2 steps. I want to, with my Dremel saw, carefully trim this, leaving just enough material on it that I can put a final sanding on it, because I don't want to, if I possibly can, lose the edge here or disturb where that carbon fiber wraps around. That's part of the way this bracket was engineered up and the way it worked out with the material that we already had on hand. Okay, so we have the rough amount taken off of this. This now is scrap, just makes our grinding operation just a little bit easier, and we'll take that over to the belt sander next. Okay, now let's see. Now I know I've got the shape that Butch is looking for on both sides. This side is a little over, so this side I'm going to grind this off by hand. The biggest pain with any carbon is the dust. And I don't want to breathe that. I don't want anybody breathing that. So we try to clean that up on an ongoing basis. So the next step is to get this all sanded down and rough and smooth, no sharp edges, and I want to try. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pull another layer of that carbon fiber sock over it, but I don't want to catch on any sharp edges. But that would just add one nice element of strength if we could get that, just to put a final layer on this. Okay, the next step on this, I mixed up another batch of resin, and I'm going to try to carefully draw the sock over it, which will really be nice if this works. If it doesn't, I've got to go to putting one piece on each side, but even that won't be a problem. Just this would be the really neat way to do this and give us a, well, a nice finished look. Even though you're not going to see this part. See, I didn't want to compromise the strength of the part to make it cute and pretty like it's going to be a dashboard part. Let's just see if we can get this to go up over there. We're really putting this to the limit here while doing this. Let's see if it's a lucky day. I'm not sure this is going to do the work. But again, if it doesn't, we have other choices. Like putting socks on that don't fit. Let's just see if we can get that up over there. Yeah, little by little. It's a miracle that we had this material, that it just, if the part was another 1/4 of an inch wider, it wouldn't be so good. It wouldn't work. Now, I'm just being really patient about trying to get this to go up over here. It looks like we're making some progress. We'll find out. The whole idea is not to have any sharp edges or corners or anything like that. This is one of the things that when it's done, it looks easy, but when you're doing it, you think, oh my God. All right, so we've got to get that around the corner. It doesn't seem like it wants. There it goes. Come on, baby, you can do it. Come on. You can do it if you try. Okay. Now, it's the same thing as putting socks on. It's unbelievable. Fights you every inch of the way, but eventually we're going to get it. And the reason I'm leaving the camera running here is because I want people to see that sometimes you struggle with something, and especially this kind of work. You struggle, but then you eventually get your way. You have your way with the product. Well, you just gotta. I feel like I'm on that show, Worst Cooks in America, and I'm the worst cook. Okay, here we go. Come on, come on. Now, when this is ultimately finished, we do not want to have a bright, shiny finish. The idea is, and hopefully we will have this, the idea is we want to have a rough etched surface for the glue to stick to. Now I assume Butch is using some kind of really good adhesive like Marine Tex, or West Systems makes some real high-end glue. I don't remember the number. I used it on the Kawasaki on the side covers, I remember that. And I don't think I have enough left over to do that I could send them some. But yeah, we got this. Okay, so I wanted to show a little bit of just how this went on. Now, of course, the next step is, and this is where it gets tricky, we've got to get a coat of resin on this, and then we'll find some way we can put it to dry overnight. This will be day 2. Tomorrow we'll come back to it and see if we're going in the right direction here. Now, of course, and I hope Butch is watching this, if this part doesn't serve the need for whatever reason, we can make another one. I've got enough material here, so I don't want to compromise this, because any of these things that they form structure too. It's one thing to have a carbon fiber thing on your dashboard of your car that looks cute, but when you're doing something that holds the engine in or holds the wheel on a motorcycle or something, and so in carbon fiber you always define it as being cosmetic or structural, and sometimes it's both. But some of those parts we made for the various restorations, we wanted both. I wanted it to look pretty. I wanted it to be as strong as I could make it. Now the thing is here, I got to massage this resin through, because there is some underneath, but I want to have make sure I get a full coat on this. And the most important thing, when this is glued in place, and I can't stress it enough, it's got to be a rough surface, like an 80 grit surface. And take a hair dryer and warm the glue up just a little bit so it gets a bite, because most of the really high-end glues are Thixotropic, and they tend to be like peanut butter. But now I'm thinking this is going to work perfect. I'm hoping. You know, I'll trim this off tomorrow. Well, we'll see. I always get one step ahead of myself on this stuff. And since most of the people that are watching the channel are either modelers from the days when I made on, I think there's about 1,000 modeling videos out on YouTube. They're all free, of course, and we're coming up on 2,000 pretty soon of the motorcycle videos, which include a lot of carbon fiber work and paint work and other stuff. And it's all basic, do it in your basement kind of stuff. We don't have a Jay Leno garage. We certainly don't have a lot of money. We try to do it all with skill and, well, whatever. All I know is some people do seem to enjoy it, and that's good. Good for them and good for me too. Okay, so now the trick, it'll be a very subtle trick. I don't want to get all the resin off. I just want to get, if this were an aircraft part, again, we'd struggle to vacuum bag it and everything, get every little drop of resin out. When Dave and I were making those carbon fiber wings, and Dave did all the technology part of it, and we had all that vacuum bag hoses going all over the cellar, what a mess. I'm glad we don't have to do that anymore. Motorcycle stuff, don't have to do that. Now this is more for cosmetic, so we don't have a big glob somewhere when I come back to the shop tomorrow. And it looks like my feeling is this is going to be real nice. I think so. Now the trick, I got to find a place to put this so that sometime you have to be a little creative. Let's see. Let's see if that works, because I'm going to trim the edges off. Yeah, that'll be fine. Now what I'll do to make sure this is an easy thing, that'll be fine. I'll put some saran wrap up here. In fact, I got to take my gloves off to go get the saran wrap. And that'll just make releasing the part a little bit easier than from that glass this morning. And by the way, when you can't get material like this, if it glued itself to a mold or to something it wouldn't release, a heat gun softens it up 165 degrees, it'll usually pop right out. So any of these glad bag, saran wrap, anything like this will just ensure that we can get this off in one piece. And again, this is something we don't have to have. We don't even have to cut it. We can put that under there. Put anything with some weight over here for now, just to keep that up there. Take this piece up here. And that'll give us two edges. Actually, what it'll do, it'll define that last edge then. That's going to work good. All right, so we will now officially put this asleep to dry for 24 minutes. See what happens when you work? You need more coffee, that's the problem. Okay, so that basically now we are at the point. I'll clean this up a little bit. This is going to have to dry overnight. And we come back to it tomorrow, then we'll see what we have. So what I did, once the part cured up to the point where you can touch it and the resin is not, your finger doesn't stick to it, I put it out in the sun where it is now officially 97 degrees. And that should cook that part up by tomorrow. It'll be perfect. Since we're trying to share information on this stuff, general rule with all epoxy, the warmer it is, the quicker it'll cure. And the colder it is, the longer it's going to take to cure. Just good general information. Until tomorrow, that's going to sit out here. Okay, so today our part has dried outside for 24 hours, and I brought it in this morning before I had coffee, and it looks great. It really looks like it's going to be perfect in every way. Now, there's a couple little things. I've got to trim this off. I trimmed the back with the saw, and there's a little bit of a glob of resin on here. I don't know, I'll just touch that with some sandpaper. Other than that, I think that part's pretty good. Now, here's the bottom line on this thing. I don't really know what this part does on a Corvette, but if we needed to make this part, if this wasn't strong enough, and I don't know how strong it is, I have no way to test it. But Butch, when you see the video, if this is not strong enough, I can make another part, but what you do is make the piece out of 1/8" aluminum instead of 1/16, and I'll put a lot of extra carbon on it. I'll put 5, 6 extra layers of carbon. I don't know how thick. At some point in time, it just gets too thick. Now, if you're using this piece as a diving board, in other words, if this gets glued and then you're putting weight here, the best thing to do is connect the corners from an engineering point of view. Some kind of a brace there. Because this, and the worst of all worlds, is if you glue this, and then this is the diving board. So in a perfect world, assuming you have clearance and it's possible to do it, I could even make you a part that this is connected. But you'd have to tell me that you have clearance. But anyway, I think we met the design criteria, and took me 3 days to do this. I'll certainly get it in the mail today, and I hope this part works out well for you. And if it doesn't, please let me know. We'll make another one. So the last part of this project, this will be the final thing. I'm going to hand sand this, get rid of any of the little razor edges that are on here. Now, the purpose of sanding this, the glue will stick a lot better if you etch it like this and sand it. And I ran it on a belt sander so it would be relatively flat without removing too much of the carbon anyway. But once I hand finish this, this will go back in a box, and you should have it in a couple days. Please let me know how it works out. I'm really thinking this will do the job. But again, the good news is, if it doesn't, we'll just make another one. Once the part is done, I hope it, again, it's going to meet your needs. And again, this is the kind of thing where if I was could see it in real life and touch it and squeeze it, and I'd know a little bit more. I try to take a good guess, and I hope this does work. So anyway, I never end one of my videos that goes to YouTube without thanking the COVID workers, all the healthcare heroes. Thank you so much, guys. And we have about a couple hundred other carbon fiber videos, painting videos, engineering videos, model airplane videos, motorcycle videos, and just hanging out with Wendy in his shop. So I hope you did enjoy the video, and thanks for watching.